Pork pies. Let's talk about pork pies. I love pork pies and they are so Christmassy, aren't they? They are absolutely delicious, but how bad for you are they? Pastry is not good for you. Pastry has a lot of fat in, full stop. There's going to be a lot of unnecessary calories in pastry. Let's put that to one side. What about the porky filling? Pork pies do come in varying degrees of quality and varying degrees of the amount of processing that's gone into them. Some will be better or worse than others, but it is all processed meat, and processed foods, as we know, aren't really very good for you. So it's not looking good for the humble pork pie. Is there any redemption? I thought that this would be a good chance to talk about red meat. Firstly, pork pies don't look particularly red, but pork is a red meat. Most other meats you can tell just by looking at them, but pork is a little bit of a funny one from that point of view. But as far as we're concerned, pork is a red meat. The NHS says that we should be eating less red meat. It says that we should be aiming to cut down to about 70 grams a day, which really isn't a lot, but what's it based on? What's the evidence? Over the last few years, there have been some big studies done about red meat. They don't actually all come up with consistent findings. There have been some that have suggested that eating red meat, particularly more than about twice a week, isn't good for you. And if you do eat more than that, it looks like it can put your blood pressure up, putting you at a higher risk of having heart attacks, strokes, and also it being a risk factor for cancer as well. So it doesn't look good from that point of view. However, I did say that not all of the studies have said the same thing. There has been a big review relatively recently looking at lots of studies and what they've shown and pulling it all together. The evidence from that, first off, when you look at it, does look like it's not good for you to eat red meat more than a couple of times a week for the reasons that we've said. However, when you actually look a little bit closer, when you dig a little bit deeper, then that's not necessarily a causal link. So what do I mean by that? Well, it does look like people who eat lots of red meat do have the problems with blood pressure and so on and so on. So you need to look at what else might be going on for those people that could be causing those problems. In particular, when you're talking about red meat, looking at diet more generally. If you eat more red meat, are you more likely to have an unhealthy diet as a whole? In particular, more processed foods. And that seems to be the key. When you factor in the processed foods, when you factor in the nitrates in particular, then it doesn't look like red meat is actually causing those problems. The problem seems to be that lots of people who eat red meat eat more processed foods and have more unhealthy diets generally. When you eat red meat, it does commonly come as processed foods, whether that's bacon, ham, sausages, meatballs, corned beef, salt beef, spam, whatever it is, pick your poison. The point is that processed foods aren't good for you. But red meat that's not been processed doesn't seem to cause those problems. Having said that, there is a health benefit to eating more chicken and fish in particular, and some non-meat sources for your main meals. The whole thing just points towards how important a balanced diet is. So for example, we say that nuts in particular are very healthy and good for you. That's true, they are. But nuts have a lot of oil in. They have a lot of calories in. If you just eat loads of nuts, that's not going to be good for you. If all you eat is chicken, you are not going to have a healthy life. You need to be getting a varied, balanced diet. And if you think about it, there's only 7 days in a week, so that's 7 main meals. So if you're having some meals that are based on fish, some on chicken, some meals without any meat in, whether they're based on nuts or mushrooms or beans or lentils or whatever it is, you're probably only going to be having red meat a couple of times a week anyway. I think really it comes down to the fact that we like to oversimplify things in order to make it easy. We like to say that this food is good and this food is bad, when that's just not true. A diet can be good or bad, and I don't mean that in a kind of strict weight loss diet kind of sense. I mean that just in terms of the foods that you eat generally. So that's it, pork pies and red meat. Pork pies not great for you because, like we said, processed food, and also just covering anything in pastry isn't good from a calorie point of view. But a couple of times a week, red meat shouldn't be a problem. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember, leave a like. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you been eating less red meat recently? Do you think you eat too much red meat? It's useful to know what your thoughts are. If you like the channel, subscribe, and remember, share the videos. Apart from anything else, who doesn't want to see a stop motion animation of a pork pie eating its own crust? See you tomorrow. Full disclosure, this is actually a game pie. Still very Christmassy, but